So if you're at home, you're going to need a couple of examples to go by, and if you're at school, your teacher may choose to play this too. So looking at these parallel lines and transversals, we have a lot of congruent angles in here, and our questions over these are going to be figuring out which angles are congruent, and if this angle equals 7, what does that mean this angle is? So let's look at how we problem solve and think through some of those, starting with number 1. So number 1 says, which angles are congruent to angle 5? So I'm going to think through this. Well, here's angle 5, right here. So I'm going to think about which ones are going to be congruent to angle 5. So I'm going to use my black pen and I'm going to mark it. I know, based on what we drew before and based on what I learned in 7th grade, or what you all learned in 7th grade, that the one across from it is made from the same two lines, and they're at the same angles. So that means that angle 8 has to be congruent. Well then, our angle pair relationships, when we look at it, I can see that 1 is in the same place as 5, and these two are parallel, these two lines are parallel, and they have the same transversal. So I know that angle 1 has to be the same. And then I can use the same logic I used to find 8 and say that 4 is across from 1, and it has to be congruent as well. So I can list that angles 1, 4, and 8 are congruent to angle 5. So I'm going to write that out. Angle 1, angle 4, and angle 8. Now, question number 2 says, if angle 1 is 95 degrees and angle 2 is 85 degrees, what is the measure of angle 4? There's a couple of different ways we can think about it. So you can look at your angle relationships, and you can say, well, this one, they just told us is 95 degrees, and this one, they just told us is 85 degrees. So you can use that and use those relationships and decide what angle 4 has to be. Or you can look at the straight lines, and you can see that there's a straight line here, and use supplementary angles, because 2 and 4 have to add to 180 because they make a straight line. So we could subtract and get our answer that way. I'm going to look at those angle pair relationships, and I'm going to see that 1 and 4 have to be the same because they're created with the same transversal, or the same two lines at the same angles. So if angle 1 is 95 degrees, then angle 4 is also 95 degrees. We're going to put an M here for the measure of angle 4. But if you just tell me angle 4 is 95, that's okay. Now, it does get a little more complicated to where we have to use our supplementary angles. So number 3 says if angle, oh, we're not there yet. If angle 2 is 75 degrees, what's the measure of angle 7? So I'm looking at angle 2 and angle 7. They're both outside of the parallel line, so they're both exterior, and they are on opposite sides. So just to think about it, we could name this pair alternate exterior. And then I know that that means they have to be congruent. And if you look, angle 3 would be congruent to 2. Angle 6 would be congruent to 2. And so angle 7 would be congruent to angle 2. So angle 7 would be 75 degrees. And we'll put a little M there that says the measure of angle 7. The last one says, if angle 7 is 40 degrees, so this one right here is 40 degrees, what is the measure of angle 5? So this is my one that I need to find. So angle 5 is not the same as angle 7, but I can see that they're supplementary because they make a straight line, and a straight line is 180 degrees. So to find angle 5, I know that it has to be equal to 180 minus the measure of angle 7. So we can say 180 degrees minus 40 degrees, and we'll find that angle 5 is 140 degrees. Hopefully this helps you just a little bit, and you'll be able to use this to find some missing angle measures and to find which angles are congruent to other angles.